What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope everyone is driving around safely. Anthony, I've left as I'm working from home today because of the weather. While it is, first of all, God bless you, sir, and your very wavy waves as you trip off the do-rag just as the show gets started. I wish I had that on the stream ready to go. I was on the old one shot here. As we get started. But I'm working from home, and I decided today that I'm going to do something I don't usually do, which is because the light, it's all messy, but it's not that bright out because it's snowing. And so I've left my window open to my left so I can see this beautiful snowfall, which is only beautiful because I'm inside. Everyone out there drive safely. We know how the DMV gets with weather. I also think it's absolutely hilarious that they're like, you must all return to work. And Mother Nature's like, middle finger to you, everybody go home. Because all the federal offices and everything that was going to make traffic hell in D.C. and probably will make traffic hell in D.C. ultimately. By the way, how bad has it been in AVR the last couple of days, considering that's where our studio is? And I haven't been in because I'm at home today and was at Capital One yesterday.
Sticking a little bit right now.
Not the weather, the traffic.
Oh, the traffic.
You took the Metro in today.
It wasn't a lot yesterday.
Yesterday wasn't too bad. I'm hoping that because we go and leave at funky times because we're an afternoon drive radio show, that we're going in when everyone else is going out, but we also got to be in before they leave, that we can avoid some of the chaos. But I know that they were expecting it to be real nasty down there in Southwest or Southeast DC. So anyway, the point is be safe out there. The snow's starting to really pick up. And it's coming down pretty good. It doesn't look like it's quite sticking yet, but it's starting to. And we'll give everybody more weather updates throughout the show. Last night, the only thing that was precipitating in Los Angeles was cheers for Luka Doncic. That's where we're going to start the show quickly. And then we will circle back fairly quickly on a Vibe Check Tuesday to the Commanders. And hey, how's everybody feel about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl? Guessing not great, but just, I don't know. We had a lot of interesting calls yesterday, Anthony, that I thought were worth exploring in terms of, all right, like some people were like NFC East pride. Other people were like, hey, it actually made me feel better about the Commanders and kind of how they performed considering what happened to the Chiefs. There's other people that hated everything because it's the Eagles. And of course we don't want to see the Eagles win because we're in DC and they're rivals. So we'll get to all that coming up here in a few. But last night in Los Angeles, and it's really not just what happened last night in Los Angeles, Anthony, as your boys, the Lakers, welcome Luka Doncic. Had a pretty humble performance. It was a blowout win. Didn't need to play that much. LeBron actually left that game early hurt, which is not ideal. But hopefully he's good to go in a couple days. They have one more game against Utah before the All-Star break. But I think it's not just seeing how the red carpet was rolled out in LA, but comparing and contrasting that of what happened in Dallas last night is yet another reminder in a year where we have gotten, specifically here in DC, more of them than you ever could have imagined, how important ownership is and what good and bad ownership looks like in certain areas. And this is not to say that the Mavs ownership is all bad and the Lakers ownership is all good. I think the Lakers ownership has largely been a mess the last couple of years. Basically since the Buss, Jerry Buss, the patriarch of that family, passed away. They had the power struggle between Jeannie and Jim and on through the end of the Kobe era. And they get LeBron. He kind of saves the franchise a little bit and wins them an extra title because he's LeBron freaking James. So they still have the cachet and all of that. But there's just, they run like a mom and pop organization in a lot of ways, even though they're the glitziest and glammiest operation in the league in terms of value and name value and brand value. Like they are a family-owned business, and they very much run that way in a time and a place where most NBA franchises run like corporations, where there's 50, 60, 100, 200 people working on the basketball operation alone. The Lakers are like, yeah, we got this, assistant here and that there, and it's just a smaller thing. And it's someone like JJ Redick, who's been around the league a little bit more, worked in a place like Philly, where obviously we know how Josh Harris runs things, but he played in Philadelphia. Like He's seen the bigger operations, what it's like with a real analytics staff, more investment in strength and conditioning. And that was, at this point when JJ was in Philly was like 8 years ago. Nevertheless, what he saw when Ballmer was running the Clippers across town, and, obviously the Clippers just built the Intuit Dome and they've got this new practice facility that's insane. So like the Lakers, this is not to say the Lakers are perfect, but there is nobody that does, these are our stars, we're going to treat them like stars, better than the Los Angeles Lakers. And last night, Anthony, I will not soon forget your face when you saw the news that, or saw the photo of all of the 77 Doncic purple and gold shirts on the seats at Crypto.com Arena. I thought that like the face you made is the face I'd imagine you make where I go, Anthony, did the Commanders just get Myles Garrett? Like you were full shock and awe.
Yeah.
And instead it was just there were shirts. But that's how the Lakers run things. And they, heroes welcome. I was listening to Clinton a little bit this morning on his new show. And Clinton talked about how people were at LA or at Crypto.com Arena like for warm-ups. And they just wanted to catch a glimpse of Luka taking some shots there. Like it was an event. All the big, Lakers legends are there. Somehow Dirk is there. Why is the Mavericks legend there for Luka? I don't know. Maybe Dirk lives in LA now and he wanted to see his guy. Like, I don't know what the deal is with that, but like somehow Dirk is there. Like, it's just like this perfect welcome for the guy that is going to be the face of their franchise. And LeBron, to his credit, like plays a part in this. I think LeBron kind of loves this kind of stuff. And so he texted Luka apparently yesterday morning and was like, hey man, like if you want to go last in the lineup introductions, you can. Like I'm going to give you that moment. LeBron's going to take it back permanently, but to say like, hey, for right now, like I want you to have this moment. And Luka said that was really, really cool. And he really appreciated that. And it shows what kind of, person and teammate LeBron is. So they have this just incredible dream-like welcome for their new star. You see what happened in Dallas last night?
Talking about the overtime loss to the Kings?
No, I'm not talking on the court. I'm talking in the stands.
No, I'm not aware.
So on the Jumbotron, they showed at least one fan. I think this happened multiple times, but they show a fan, and he starts a Fire Nico chant the second he gets on the Jumbotron.
Dang.
Nico, as in the Mavericks general manager, who is the architect of the Luka Doncic trade, who has said 17 dumb things since the trade, which was less than a week ago. Just an constant rotation of inexplicable stuff from an NBA general manager, taking shots or like he's trying to explain himself, but like, man, I don't know that you really need to. Like, I appreciate the honesty, but like you're being honest with us in a way that reveals you as someone who doesn't get what your job is, which isn't ideal. And so that's, I always take honesty over being coy about things. But when you tell us something that's honest and terms how you feel and what you're saying is dumb, I'm not going to be like, oh, thanks for your honesty. I'm going to let you go on the dumbness. And Nico Harrison, like, one, he made the freaking deal. He did the deal the way he did the deal in terms of the middle of the night, not maximizing the asset, all that kind of stuff. And then he said all kinds of crazy things that basically insinuate that like Luka didn't work that hard. He's not that good. We're concerned about him, in the future. And you traded a 25-year-old, soon to be 26-year-old, when he's finished third in MVP voting the last couple of years. And the guy that you traded him for at the centerpiece is already hurt. Which I feel bad for Anthony Davis, but like, holy karma. And so you know what they did with this fan who started the Fire Nico chant?
They banned him.
I don't think they've banned him, but they did kick him out of the game.
Man.
There's a lot of stuff that fans do that I wish they got kicked out for. There's stuff people say. There is like some of the heckling, and I know like, I don't know how much sympathy is left in DC for Bradley Beal, but like there was some stuff a couple weeks ago with like Brad's kids, where like his wife was like, yeah, like I had to explain to my kids that, or my kid was crying because this jerk behind us was saying terrible things about their dad. And like, that's a human part of going to a basketball game. But even that's kind of, depending on what exactly was being said, is kind of on the line. Like if the dude's like, I think the guy was like, "Hey, Brad, you're a bum," and like, okay, if that's how you express your fandom, then like, what are you compared to that guy? And like, I've crushed Brad within the basketball context quite a bit, even before he got traded. And it's not like he's playing well, but like, the bum thing is so lame. It's frankly super lame. New York sports fan is what it is. And so, okay, fine, but that's kind of part of the territory. Bradley Beal is making 40, 50 mil a year. So, you can call me stuff at that price for certain amounts. And that's just part of the gig. Some of the more personal stuff, that's off limits. That's a human being. But somewhere in there is some gray area, and somewhere in there is a line. And if you're a general manager and you make a deal like this, you have to know there's going to be backlash. And that's, by the way, one of the dumbest things that Nico Harrison has said over the last couple of weeks, or the last week, is that part of the reason they did the deal the way they did and they didn't want it leaking out was because they wanted to mitigate fan backlash. Yeah, we made the dumbest possible deal, and we didn't actually maximize our assets so that you guys wouldn't be mad at us. Huh? What? No. And so they freaking kicked this guy out. And like, the thin-skinnedness of that level of pettiness, which emanates down from ownership, to what the Busses did, and Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka and the staff in LA to make Luka feel welcome, is why the Lakers constantly get stars, and why teams like the Mavs can draft one and hold on to one, like Dirk for 20 years, because when Mark Cuban was there, they were extraordinarily loyal and would never have done stuff like that. Cuban would not have kicked that dude out. Cuban, I think, had his very sensitive moments and gotten some petty fights over the years with people that I worked with when I worked out in Dallas. But I don't think he's kicking a fan out of the arena for saying fire the GM after he makes a big, bold deal. He understands it's part of the game. And I just think it's lame. And I think it shows the difference in someone like the Buss family, someone like these weirdos that now own the Mavs, someone like a Josh Harris, by the way. The stuff he takes from Philly fans, he's just like, yeah, whatever. It's part of the deal. And someone like a Dan Snyder who wouldn't even let anybody talk to him. Like, in the grand scheme, it's just a part of the equation, but it's definitively part of the equation. And thank goodness on the football side of things in town, we have that. And I do genuinely wonder about the basketball operation here and how I definitely think there are certain people, like I don't think Will Dawkins cares at all. I don't know how much Michael Winger cares. I think Ted Leonsis wants to be loved, but finally realized that like the way he was going about that wasn't resulting in him being loved. But I think at the end of the day, like what's important here is that you listen to your fans. And it's part of what made like the Ted Virginia thing so like, he's like, oh, this will be great. And everyone's like, hey, we're the people it's supposed to be great for. This isn't great. Hello. Woohoo. And someone like Josh Harris is like, head down. I'm going to do the job best I can. And then, to me, this is the way to go about it. Simply do the right thing. Do the right thing. Take care of people. Prioritize that. Take care of your fans. If you do stuff that's risky, understand that they're going to be upset. But if it's worth doing, they'll be happy with the results in the end. And that's how you be a good owner. And spend money. Spend lots of your money. You have so much money if you're a sports owner. That's how you be a good owner in sports in 2025. And Mavs don't have it. That's for sure. Lakers seem to have some elements of it. And thankfully here in D.C., at least with the football team, we've seen how much that actually matters. All right, when we get back, speaking of the football team, some thoughts from us on a Vibe Check Tuesday before we get into yours at 301-230-0980. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. What do we think, Commanders fans? We talk it out. Maybe this even turns into football therapy next on the Hoffman Show. Capital. Team 980, always live as well on the Free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Ever miss any part of the show? You can check out the full stream on demand, also the full show on demand in our podcast feed. We also post up clips at the Team 980 and at Craig Hoffman. We'll also say on YouTube Shorts right now, or on either mine or Anthony or Meg McDonald's Instagram pages, Moneyline Meg, you can check out the video of Anthony missing a field goal that he said he made. Which, the way I almost made Tony recut the short, because you don't clearly see the ball miss the way that he cut it. Just for the couple people that have commented and were like, he actually made that. No, he didn't. I promise you. Anthony, have you rewatched your own video yet of you saying that you made a 20-yard field goal and then realizing you didn't? Have you rewatched the video?
So I've rewatched it, and even yesterday I was like, did it sneak inside the left upright, or did it just miss to the left?
And which did it, Anthony?
I think I missed, to be honest. But I thought I made it, actually. I'm going to have to text my friends. I think one of my friends got a different angle.
I'm open to a different angle if there's one that definitively says that you made it. But if I...
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I gave it another try either, though.
But the one that you sent... definitively, I
missed.
Yeah, you can catch it going outside. I see why some people might have thought that you made it, because it, like, the angle, the ball finishes what looks like inside the upright, but if you slow it down, which I'm doing like the back and forth film bit right now, like frame by frame, you can see the ball pass on the outside. I almost had it. If I can rewind,
it just misses.
There. I got a screenshot of the ball now outside of the post.
Yeah.
So it is definitively a miss on this attempt of your field goal at the College Football Hall of Fame.
I know. So sad.
Yeah. Speaking of sad, Anthony, did the Eagles Super Bowl win, like, on Sunday night, as a true Commanders fan, not someone who does this professionally like me, Mr. Hired Gun over here. Whenever you want to consider that game over, halftime, the actual final whistle, Devontae Smith play, whichever point you're like, the Eagles are going to be Super Bowl champs. In that moment, did you feel better or worse about, like, as a Commanders fan? You're like, this sucks? Or you're like, you know what? Commanders, at least this didn't happen to them. I know the final score got real sideways, but, like, the Chiefs had way less of a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the 3 matchups we had against the Eagles, it sort of kind of gave me hope, just because if the Eagles are doing this to the Chiefs, the best team in the AFC, 2-time defending champs, and, you know, the Commanders, for the most part, up until the fourth quarter of that game, hung in there tooth and nail with the Eagles. It just gave me hope, because I'm just like, all right, we know we know we're up against, and we know we can hang with these guys. And this was the first year of a recalibration year. Right. And we already know, like, coming into the season, like, we had questions about the O-line, the D-line. Like, we had things that we needed to address. The cornerback.
For sure. You want to know what, Anthony, you want to know what it made me, like, kind of feel / think? You know how we do our tiers, which we typically do on Tuesday, and actually we're going to do a special presentation of those later in the show based off ESPN's 2025 power rankings. We're going to take their power rankings and maybe move some things around and draw our own lines. But I was like, maybe the Commanders did belong in prime contenders. Like, we put them down a level, and we're like, hey, they got a puncher's chance. They're all wily. You never know with Jaden. They could throw a random haymaker and be in there. No, man. Like, they're as good as any other team. That or Philly was the only prime contender, and everyone else was puncher's chance. Like, they were on as close to Philly's level as anybody else in the league. And I mean, I know the Rams played them closer, and like the Rams had a drive that could have had it, but that's a snow game. That one was kind of a weird circumstance, whatever. And some, styles make fights too. I think that's the other thing is like, I think Buffalo was way better suited to beat Philadelphia or to have a shot against Philadelphia than Kansas City because Buffalo runs the mess out of the football and they play really big. They have the offensive line, the whole deal. Baltimore, same thing. Way better matchup. Kansas City's a terrible matchup for Philadelphia in hindsight. But by the same token, like Washington hung in there with Philly multiple times. And it makes me think that like, if that team's the best, which by the eye test and by the fact that they got to take the Lombardi home, they're the best. That makes me feel like this Washington team wasn't fluky. It wasn't some puncher's chance. Like they were genuinely a prime contender, maybe a lot longer than we even realized, which begs the question for all of you out there listening that are Commanders fans or maybe fans of another team. How do you feel about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl? That's our vibe check today. How you feeling about this? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, and we're taking your calls next. Also, don't forget, we're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. new song in rotation, Ant.
I thought I'd play some Philly, Freeways from Philly. So
I'm not mad about it. Not bad about it. It's going to stay in. This is the energy we like to bring.
yes, sir.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we are taking your phone calls at 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the telephone number where you can tell us how you feel about the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl. All right, Commanders fans, what you got? Let's start off with Dennis. Dennis, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks. And maybe it's age, but I was telling them now. Yeah, I won money, so that helps. But the fact is that I'm an NFC guy. If the Commanders don't win it, then I would hope NFC East would win it. If NFC East doesn't win it, I would hope NFC would win it, with one exception. And guess who that is? Dallas.
I was going to go full Jimmy Johnson on you. I was going to be like, how about them Cowboys? But you didn't give me time. So, yeah.
Exactly right. Philly's a good team, and I love defense, too, and that was such a dominant defensive play. So I have a good vibe with it. I'm happy that an NFC East team won it. And aren't we the last team to have beaten them? I don't know for sure, but we might have been.
Not only was Washington the last team to beat Philadelphia this season, they were the only team after Philadelphia's bye to beat them. When Philly got DeJean back and made a couple of tweaks to their defense that went from like pretty solid to like historically top five. If you take away their first 5 games, which I know is not how this works, but like the rate at which they played for the final, 12 games, 13, 14, count the playoffs. That is a top 5 all-time defense. That is how good that defense was post-bye. And Washington not only was the only team to beat them, but really I feel like was the only team. There's a couple of teams that played them close, but they were more like 22-19 type of games. Washington put 30 on them. And I think that's something that certainly, you can be proud about if you're a Commanders fan.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. As Dennis departs, we got one more line open. Let's go to DC. DC, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Great day, Craig, man. First, I want to say, man, get home safely, brother. And I was joyful that the Eagles won. I'm happy they won, but I wasn't joyful. I was more joyful seeing that they're the measuring stick now to win the Super Bowl. They're in our division. We played them well every game, even though they do cause us to have turnovers. So we got to protect the ball. And I know that we're going to do what we need to do in the offseason to beat them because they're in our division. I got a question for you also.
What's up?
I think you said what our most important thing we should go after this offseason is the D-line. Seeing how good their D-line is, do you still agree with that? Or should it be O-line that we look to bolster the most?
I mean, I think the good news is that you can do both. I think you need to do both in terms of, and then it comes down to like what's available to you. Like, I don't want to be like, you have to spend more on your offensive line, and then Myles Garrett's available, and it's like, oh, well, we didn't get up Myles Garrett because we signed some above-average guard.
Free agency, not just in free agency, but also in the draft. Like,
sure,
I understand if the best player is available at 29 and it's a DN, we should get him. But
right.
I think our focus should be a little more on the O-line because their D-line is so dominant, and they're losing a few pieces, which is good too.
For sure.
I don't know how many they'll be able to sign.
Yeah, I think DC, you've hit on the conundrum though. Do you try to prepare to defend against that, right? Or in this case, offend against that? Do you bulk up your offensive line to deal with their defensive line, or you go, oh, that's a good formula. What if we could do that? Right, because I could make the argument either way. Intellectually, that's not very hard for me to do.
Right.
Phyllis, if I want to put my philosopher hat on and be annoying about it and be like, well, we could over here do this or could over here do this. Like, I think both are good. And I think what you have to do if you're a good general manager, which Adam Peters more than is you have to look at what's available to you. You have to look at the opportunities. And as I'm starting to dive, like I've dipped my toe in on the draft to at the very least, like be aware of kind of the contour of this draft. there is a ton of defensive line talent available. I think it is far more I don't say far more likely because there's actually like a couple of good tackles that are going to be available at the end of the first round. So, but there's definitely going to be defensive line talent available to you at 29. And if the best player on your board is an edge or a defensive tackle, you take that guy. You take the best player available to you because of the state of your roster. Like really outside of Terry at wide receiver 1, and that, I guess unless Jamar Chase becomes available, you're not upgrading at wide receiver 1. You're not upgrading a quarterback. Good there. Real quick, DC, and then I promise I'll let you finish here. Outside of those two positions, there is not a position on this team that you couldn't tell me the best player available at 29 is like free safety. Like Quan Martin, I'm perfectly fine with Quan Martin starting. If you tell me there's a stud first-round free safety that's the best player available by far on your board at 29 and they take him, I'm fine with that. Like that is the state of this roster. They need stars wherever they can get them.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I trust Adam Peters with that. But being that you said D-line, Kansas City showed their D-line played well, but it wasn't enough to stop them. But they couldn't protect Mahomes at all. You see what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And like the thing is, whatever you do, you have to get it right. But I think also schematically, like Washington does some good stuff. I mean, normally Andy does too in terms of protecting Patrick. Historically, Kansas City's problem in many ways was they put Joe Thuney, an all-pro left guard, out at left tackle, and he wasn't good at left tackle in that game, which means not only are you worse at left guard, you're worse at left tackle than you should be. And by the way, for Kansas City, they've spent 2 picks in a row, a third rounder 2 years ago and a second rounder this year on left tackle, and neither of those guys have panned out yet. So I think you also have to think about this, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that second round pick that they took last year, Kingsley Suamatia, like I'm not going to tell you that he's a bust. What I can tell you is he's raw and wasn't ready to play this year, which you probably should have known coming in if you're Kansas City. So I think the other part of it too is how do you address these positions? Because if you're worried about Philly's offensive or defensive line now, and your solution to that is the draft, rookies. Like, I know our brains just got broken because Jaden just did a million things that it wasn't supposed to happen for a rookie. But, like, rookies aren't typically good in their first year. So I do think that, in the draft, like attacking D-line, a position that maybe translates a little faster off into the NFL than offensive line, and maybe attacking the offensive line to shore it up a little bit in free agency might not be the worst play. But, again, it comes down to what's available on each market, free agency and trade and draft. And I think that your head's in the right place for sure in terms of both lines of scrimmage being probably the top 2 priorities in whatever order you want to put them.
All right, brother. Have a great day, man. Appreciate you.
You too. Appreciate that, DC. All right, we get back. More of your calls here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. And we are taking your calls at 301-230-0980. Let's keep it rolling with our question. How you feel about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl if you are a Commanders fan? Let's go to Marcus. Marcus, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hoffy, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude?
Not much. I'm in a bit of a dilemma here. Like, I felt good about the Eagles winning, and it was a dominant performance. But then I started feeling yucky that the Eagles won, not because of the Eagles, but because of the fans. Oh, my goodness. It's like I gave the credit to the Eagles. You know, defense was lights out. Jalen Hurts played a great game. But every time I talk to an Eagles fan, it's the same argument over and over and over again. And that argument is, well, why isn't Jalen Hurts being referred to as elite? Jalen Hurts is elite. Jalen Hurts is this. And I'm like, well, what are we talking? Like, Jalen Hurts is not elite. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. Jalen Hurts had a highly efficient season. He had a great Super Bowl. He's a great quarterback. But I would say right now there are 5 quarterbacks you could have put in that Philly offense, and they would have still been in the same position as Super Bowl champions. And I guess the way that I explain it to them, it falls on deaf ears because I feel like they're just Eagles fans, not actual football fans. So I'm gonna throw something at you real quick. And as a fan of the game, not a fan of the Commanders, let me know if I'm, I guess, on the right tracker here or not. All right.
Okay.
So my explanation was 2 out of 10 times when the Eagles win, it's because of Jalen Hurts. 2 out of 10 times. And that's being fairly generous. 8 out of 10 times when the Eagles lose, it's because of Jalen Hurts. Like, would that be a fair assessment?
I don't know about those numbers, but I think you're on to something that is a really great way to talk about quarterbacks. There are kind of 3 groups, I would say, that of quarterbacks, right? There's quarterbacks you win because of. There's quarterbacks you can win with, and there's quarterbacks that don't give you a chance. And like, there is no really like 2 sections of the losing. There's not like you can lose with or you can lose because of. Like, once you're on the losing side, you're on the losing side. And I think Jalen Hurts is very, very high on the you can win with list. And I think specifically with how he fits in Philadelphia, the reasons that he might not be you win because of are mitigated, and he becomes a guy that Philly can win because his lack of elite processing and his quickness of getting through progressions that would be murderous if he played behind not the best offensive line in football literally don't matter. And a great example of this, folks that are going to listen for the next 20 minutes are going to hear this again because Logan mentions this in our Super Bowl breakdown on Take Command, and we're going to play that for you as Not My Beat at 5 o'clock. But he talks about that first completion of Devontae Smith. Smith is open immediately on that play and is the read. And Jalen misses him, gets a little bit of pressure, has the athleticism and ability and wherewithal to get out of the pocket, and then delivers a dart on the sideline to Devontae Smith. And everyone's like, oh, great play. It is, but why didn't you just hit him the first time? And that is the Jalen Hurts experience. But he's also an elite competitor, a great runner, a phenomenal leader. He's unbelievable at the line of scrimmage of getting them into the right play, which when your running back is Saquon Barkley, getting you into the right run and letting him run into good look 1,000%. After good look is really important. So, like, he's great at a lot of stuff. He's probably at the back end of the top 10 in terms of NFL quarterbacks,
and that's what
but he's not top 5.
Like, he's great. He's great. And I say that he's great, but then I say he's not elite, and the Eagles fans just attack. oh, you're throwing shade on him, leave my guy. And it's like, I'm literally giving him a compliment. He's a great quarterback. But to try to compare him or put him in the likes of, and this was the exact, these are the exact quarterbacks that these fans put him in the conversation with. Mahomes, Brady, Aikman, Elway, like just crazy. And I'm like, where are you going with
Marcus?
Like,
there's a very simple explanation for this. They're still drunk. Or they fell off the pole.
I used to
It took two jokes, but we got there. We got the laughter out of Marcus. Marcus, I appreciate the call, man. We got to keep it moving because we got a bunch of people on hold, but I appreciate your call as always, man. Let's go to Kurt in District Heights. Kurt, how you feel about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl as a Washington fan?
How you doing, Craig? I don't really feel good about it. I was in a conundrum on Sunday because normally I'm an NFC guy. I'll normally back the NFC, but I just know too many Philly fans, and like the last caller said, the Philly fans they're just so obnoxious, and they just work my last nerves. And in the fact that they beat us up in the championship game, I'm still salty about that. Then they win the chip, and then now I keep hearing all the stuff, and I'm hearing the same thing. Jalen Hurts is top 3, 4, and then it's Sirianni's top 3. It was pointed out to me that he was one of 3 coaches that won 2 chips in their first 4 years, one being Lombardi, one being John Madden, and the other one being Sirianni. I'm like, okay, elite company, but not elite coach. Okay, he's a head coach that has the most talented roster in the NFL, which was built by Howie Roseman, okay, with great coordinators. That's what it is. I'm not saying anything negative about him. I'm just saying that's what Sirianni is, okay? And I just don't see him. They think he's a top 3 coach now of all time. You got to be kidding me, man. That's a joke. Okay?
Yeah, no, that's a joke. That's ridiculous.
They were drunk. But anyway, I had a hard time accepting the fact that Philly was dominant, but I do respect their performance. It was a dominant performance, and I tip my hat to that. But we got to make some moves, man, to get up, to get on that level, or close to it anyway.
Hey, man, they were 4-13, 23, and look what they just did in 24. So they're certainly headed in the right direction, and I do think that they will continue to move that way. I don't want to say aggressively, but intelligently, and we'll see what that looks like. Kurt, thanks for the call. The Sirianni, you know what's actually really funny, Anthony, is like in a lot of ways, Sirianni and Hurts are the same. Like, I don't think either of them, if you redraft the entire league and you scramble the pieces, are going to be the top selections, like top 5 selections, top 4 selections. I think guys like McVay are going to go ahead. I think O'Connell goes ahead. I think Sean Payton. Like, there's guys that are going to go ahead of Nick Sirianni because of who they are, how they built their programs. Jim Harbaugh is going to probably go ahead. I think a lot of people, DQ did this for 1 year. If DQ has another year like this, like he's going to be seen as one of these guys. But also, like, for what they need in Philadelphia, Nick Sirianni's perfect. Like, he's got a little bit of that Philly attitude. I think it's always important to, like, kind of embody your city in a way. There's an authenticity that comes with that. So while I don't love my head coach arguing with fans, I hate it a little bit less in Philadelphia. I think you have to be great at hiring staff talent, except for in Philadelphia, Howie Roseman helps with that stuff. Like, their front office is more involved in the staff hiring than, say, Dan Quinn or a lot of, like, Sean McVay has been unbelievable to keep. How many guys that Sean has lost in LA and they just keep on rolling is crazy. Kyle, until this year in San Francisco, same thing. Their ability to just replace defensive coordinators, replace quarterbacks coaches. Like, these aren't easy positions to fill with high-quality people, and both their skill at the top and their ability to identify coaching talent is really rare. But what Sirianni clearly does is he helps the room be its best, and it's not necessarily keep peace because they had some what I think were some healthy fights amongst their dudes, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, whatever kerfuffle that was. Like, he's managed that stuff really well. He sets a competitive culture, and I think he stays out of the way of stuff that he doesn't need to be in the way of. And he manages the game decently well. And so I think as long as you do that stuff, the task is just not quite as hard as it is for other coaches, in the same way that for Jalen, the task is not quite as hard because when he hands the ball off, it's to Saquon Barkley. That Saquon Barkley's running behind the best O-line in football. Jalen, when he passes, has 2 stud first round, like A.J. Brown's a top 3 receiver in the league, and Devontae Smith's a top 20 guy. Goddard's good. He's behind a great O-line. Like, all that kind of stuff. It just makes the task easier. But they got an A+ on the test. Like, Jalen Hurts got an A+ on Eagles quarterback test. Would Jaden Daniels have been better? Maybe statistically, but he can't win 2 Super Bowls in 1 year. What do you want? He won the Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni. Are there other coaches that maybe would have had a few less storylines in the media? Sure. But he won the Super Bowl. What do you want him to do? And so I think that's the thing where, like, if you're a Philly fan, you're just like, my guy won the Super Bowl. Whatever. That was not a Philly fan impression, by the way. I can work on it. In my head, there was a big Dom somewhere. But the point is, like, yes, congrats. You won the Super Bowl. It does not mean every guy on your roster is the best guy that's ever done it in the history of the NFL. It's okay to have humility somewhere between the two. But congratulations on your Lombardi. It is very well deserved. All right, that's it for now in terms of calls. We might take some more later on in the show. But up next, Logan Paulsen. What did he think of the Super Bowl? And a couple of thoughts along the way in that analysis of what it means for the Commanders. Logan next here on the Hoffman Show. number 2 of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Coming up a little bit later, more of your phone calls on the Commanders as we embark on the offseason in the wake of an Eagles Super Bowl victory. Also, the greatest sporting event that was just hidden, not even hidden, like a sporting event that we deep down knew we needed, that we got last night, and it lived up to the hype. We'll talk about that coming up at 5:45. Right now, though, today's edition of Not My Beat is actually going to be our Super Bowl review from Take Command because, well, the Eagles winning is still the top story, sadly, but still the top story in sports just less than 48 hours after things went final, even if you talk the 48 hours from, halftime when the game really ended. Game hadn't even started 48 hours ago, which is wild. But Logan and I broke it down, also used the Super Bowl itself to touch on some things that we can learn from the Commanders. So without further ado, here's me, here's Logan, talking ball for today's edition of Not My Beat.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. Take Command Podcast. I'm Craig Hoffman. That is Logan Paulson. We got a mailbag for you here on a Tuesday. It was much more fun, Logan, on our old schedule a couple off seasons ago when it was Mailbag Monday. But now this podcast doesn't come out till Tuesday, so it's just Mailbag Tuesday.
Well, we're trying to get. Well, we were trying to film it on Monday, right? But we had like some stuff, some things.
Yeah, but we used to actually release the show on Monday.
See, that's how locked in I am.
Yeah, you care about your end of it. You care about the back end. When the folks hear it, you hear it when you hear it. We release twice a week. We actually, speaking of the back end, remind me after we get done recording, talk to you about what we're doing the rest of the week. I don't know when we're recording. This week's crazy. Next week's crazy. The week after is crazy. Logan, we're 2 weeks until the NFL Combine.
Dude, I know it. I'm doing like draft stuff. Like you were a little bit late getting on today because you had to drop somebody off at the train station. But I was like, it's okay because I have to watch about 200 people for the combine. So like, no worries. So yeah, we're in it right now. We're in the grind of it here. Yeah,
we'll start getting into some draft and free agency stuff later this week, next week for sure. I mean, we'll touch on it in some of the mailbag questions we have today for sure as well. But Logan and I will both be in Indianapolis, so looking forward to that. We typically do a couple of episodes while we're on site there, so that's always a good time. Speaking of scheduling nightmares, trying to get the big fella to sit down, trying to keep track of you in Indianapolis. You're a man in high demand, but I'll get that straightened out. I'll corral him. I'll corral Logan Paulson. But we're going to start off today before we get to the mailbag with some chatter about the Super Bowl. And Logan, people will be like, oh, what do we learn from the Super Bowl? And I'm like, these two teams have been here. These two teams have been around. Yeah. I don't know that there's a ton we learned specifically from the game other than like some stuff that's specific to the game. We talk about the team building stuff. Like I had someone call into the radio show on Monday and say like, well, what does Adam Peters learn from this game? Knowing he's got to get past the Eagles. I'm like, nothing. He learned everything he needed to know in the NFC Championship game when his team lost in significant fashion, similar to the Chiefs. But I do think the game itself is interesting. It's not a game that we thought would be a lot closer. Obviously, Eagles just thoroughly dominant. They're clearly the best team in football this year. By the way, the only team to beat them since their Week 5 bye was the Washington Commanders. But they just throttled Kansas City. And I mean that both figuratively and literally, the way that they tightened the screws defensively on them to a level that I didn't think was possible against that offense and specifically that quarterback.
Yeah, it was really crazy. I was watching the game, and, I kind of had this expectation going in, like everybody asks, who you got in the Super Bowl, what do you think? And I kind of was like, well, I think it's going to be a one-score game, right? They're going to kind of play it out. That's what Philly wants to do. That's what Kansas City wants to do. And if you're giving it and if it's a last possession football game, you're going to give it to Patrick Mahomes. But I will say after I want to say it was the second 3-and-out or second 4-and-out that Kansas City had, I had this thing in my head that popped up. I was like, oh, they don't get it. they don't get how good Philly's defense is in the back end. They don't understand the speed they're dealing with. They don't understand like how well coached the back end of that group is. Because again, like everyone's talking about the offensive line, I do think that's a big story, obviously. Like, and I think that's something that you mentioned things to learn. I think that's one of the things to learn is like when you got a guy, let's make sure you got an offensive line to help him out and protect him. But I think the one thing is his time to throw is 3.2 seconds, which is pretty long for Patrick Mahomes. And to me, that's him looking to the first read. It's not there. Everything's dead. And how many times in prepping for Philly this year, the 3 times we played them, did you just watch a coverage and be like, there is no air here. There's no air. And I wish I could articulate this in a way that showed how impressive that is to the listener. But when you watch defenses, usually you're like, oh, like here's a free runner. Though the back's open in the flat. Oh, you can easily get to this dig if you kind of give it a beat. There is 0 air. And so that's when I was watching the game. I was like, they don't get it. They're not ready for how good this defense is. And that showed up big time as the game went on. So it literally went from, I think it's going to be a 1-score game to after the second 3 and out, I'm like, this might be a blowout. I literally had that thought. I said it to my wife out loud. Like, I just was like, they don't understand how good this group is defensively. And Philly is not going to make a lot of mistakes offensively to let you get back in it. And that's exactly what happened.
They even make the one, and it just doesn't matter because by the end, and there's so many points in that game because it's Pat and because it's the Chiefs that you're like, oh, there's the point, the interception. They have this chance, where they get the ball backed up. You're like, oh, Patrick is about to lead them on a 93-yard touchdown drive. They'll get the ball to start the second half, and this thing will be 17-14 before Jalen Hurts touches it again. And instead, Joe Thuney gets bull rushed into Patrick Mahomes' leg. He throws a pick to Zach Bond. Bang, score, 24-0. And the game is basically over at halftime. We enjoy Kendrick Lamar, and then it's just a coronation in the second half. And especially after Philly comes out and like 3 and out or 4 and out, whatever it was, and then the dagger to Devontae Smith to make it even more certain that game was not going to be some historical comeback. Can you remember a point in your career where you played a defense like that, where you watch them on film and you know that they're good? Because there's no way Kansas City didn't know that Philly was really good, but just playing against them. Like once you get on the field, you're like, oh, this is not what I thought was going to happen. This is way worse.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind for me, and I was actually talking to Santana about this, and I was like, I haven't seen a defense like this. He's like, what about those old Baltimore defenses? And those old Baltimore defenses felt like that. Like you watched them on film, you saw one thing, and then when you got on the field, like they were just so big and so physical and so fast. And so I think that's a pretty good comparison. I will say it's different. Like, and what I mean by that is, so back, in when was that, 2010, 2011, whenever we're playing Baltimore, and I even miss like peak Baltimore because I think it was the year prior. It was like 2007 maybe when they were really good or they won that Super Bowl. But I don't remember exactly. But my point is that like they played a lot of single high, 8-man boxes, Ed Reed doing his thing in the back end.
Ed Reed was 3 people in the back end by himself.
Yeah. And so now, because of how offenses have changed, because how defensive emphasis has changed, like it's literally, he articulated this really well. It's really like just 6 dudes in the box. And Vic Fangio's like, you figure it out. And the back end is just there. Like they are just in the zones and the hot spots of the defense. And so, yeah, it feels like that, where you're just like overwhelmed by the speed, the physicality, the playmaking ability. And it's different, obviously, than Baltimore because those dudes, like Terrell Suggs and Johnson on the other side, and they had these big interior players, Adams and Saragusa and all like it just was different, right? But this is it. Like when you're watching it on the sideline, it has that same kind of like, oh, this is just a little. It's like turned up a little bit. And so that's what it reminded me of. And I think when you look statistically at those great Baltimore defenses, I think they're the number 1 scoring defense maybe of all time with like 17.4. But Philly over the last couple of weeks or over the last kind of chunk of the season is like 17.5. Like just to give you an approximation of like where they're at.
Yeah, I think the all-time Ravens defense was like the 2000 team.
When they beat the Giants, right? Is that
yeah. Like that team where Trent Dilfer was the Super Bowl winning quarterback, and all due respect to Dilfer, but like almost any NFL quarterback with a pulse could have been the quarterback of that team. Like that defense literally gave up. I think it might have been like 13 a game. Like it was
crazy.
A grotesque defense. You have them, you have the 85 Bears, you have the 2013 Seahawks, you have that 2007 Giants team that beats the 18-0 a couple of my friends, we call it the 18-0 Patriots because they lose the Super Bowl obviously, but it's that Randy Moss like insane offense and just the pass rush that the Giants have. And I think that's the thing that sticks out in this game is not only do they have dudes in DeJean and Mitchell and Bond and Blankenship and Slay. Like they got guys that are really fast and really intelligent and really well coached. They also have a lot of them, and both in that they have depth and also they blitzed 0 times in this game. Literally 0. They had some simulated pressure, so there are some times that they're able to create free runners, which is crazy against, like, you have Pat Mahomes and Creed Humphrey, and you're still getting free runners because you're able to confuse their protection rules enough that Zach Bond is flying, unblocked through the B gap. But then just the fact that you have 7 or 8 guys in coverage on every snap with that intelligence, with that range, like that feels that's how you tighten the screws like that, is like you just don't have anybody who's overexposed. And not to mention against the guys like Mahomes, and I actually think Jaden is this way too. Like we talked about this with Daniels this year. If you blitz, his eyes are going to obviously see that flash of like, oh, that's an extra guy coming. And often there's space vacated behind it. And so if you're fast enough with your release and your processing, blitzes are opportunities. And Mahomes is as good as that. Are as good at that as anyone. And because they did not give him the opportunities to beat the blitz, he had to just beat coverage. And when you have to beat coverage and the 4-man rush is getting home, that's a nightmare. Like there's just no, I don't know what the offensive fix is for that outside of being like, screw this, we're not going to pass, we're going to run the ball. And Kansas City couldn't really do that either.
Well, I think, not to make this about the Commanders, but I think it's a testament to how well Jaden played in the championship game, especially on those first couple of drives, man. He did a great job. Again, finding those tight window throws, being aggressive in man-to-man coverage. And I think it just shows you kind of the mindset you need to have that Dan Quinn brought in, going for it on 4th down. Like, that's what you needed to do versus this team, and I think, again, it's so tight. And then the way that Zach Bond plays underneath, the way he's able to get into zones, the way he's able to close throwing windows, and it's all married together so well. It's so cinched. And that's why it was so weird watching the second matchup that the Commanders had versus the Eagles, where they're able to hit those 2 explosive plays over the top, because everything had just been so well timed and so well formulated the entire season. And I guess they're allowed a hiccup, and good thing it happened versus the Commanders. But man, it's hard to articulate how good they are at playing defense. They are tremendous. And so I really felt like that Kansas City did understand it. And if you want solutions, you have to be able to run the ball a little bit. You need a couple easy buttons. And I think, again, going back to the championship game, you're able to run a couple whams, a couple quarterback runs, just to kind of keep you on schedule to keep the defense honest. And I think when you look at the LA Rams game, they rushed for over, it was 115 yards or something like that with the running back there, Kyron Williams. And that's a testament to them. That's how you deal with them. But again, they are so talented up front, specifically on the interior of the defensive line and at linebacker with Zach Bond, that most teams just aren't equipped to do that. LA's offensive line is good. When they're healthy, that's a good group, and they understand who they are. They understand how to get downhill. They present different looks in terms of run fits, which is a little bit challenging, and they're willing to die by a 3.5 yard a game kind of carry. I don't think Kansas City was equipped to do that. I think Andy Reid knew that, and I think when he said, "Oh, we're going to run a ton of RPOs," I think about the RPOs that the Commanders ran in the first game, on the Thursday night game, and in the second game. I've never seen a team defend them so well, right? Even in the championship game, just how quickly they are to get up the field and attack those little bubbles and slants and things like that. So it's again, I think that this Kansas City team was depleted compared to other Kansas City teams. They're just a little bit banged up on the offensive line. They don't have maybe the offensive playmaking ability that they've had in the years past. But I think it's a huge testament, in my opinion, to Philly and what they've done throughout the year and how they've been coached and how they've executed. Because, that is a really dominant group, and I think that showed up in the Super Bowl. For sure. And it also shows you just how, quality drafting, both immediately and in the long term, can just change the trajectory of your franchise. Because both these teams are great, right? They're both really good rosters. The Eagles are the best roster in the league for sure, hands down. They might be one of the best, 1 to 53s that we've had. I can't even think of a team that was this talented. Maybe ever.
Yeah,
the one that came to mind earlier was the that Ravens team that won the Super Bowl in 2000. That. Their offensive line was amazing. They had good speed on the outside. They had a good running back. I think they had a 2,000-yard rusher that season. And their defense was it feels like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just when you're like, oh, there's dudes everywhere. So
Yeah, 100%. And there's just and like obviously Jalen is a lot better than Trent Dilfer. Man, Trent Dilfer's taking bullets in this one. Sorry, Trent.
But yeah, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like in terms of
it's top to bottom and at the most important position. Like we've talked about it, Jalen is he the best pocket passer processor in the league? No, but he does basically everything else well. He's in great command at the line of scrimmage. His leadership skills are A+. Like there's so much stuff that he does, and his accuracy and specifically his deep ball accuracy. So like, sure, he might not hit the quick hook. As fast as Jaden Daniels or Patrick Mahomes, but like he'll hit the deep ball as well as those guys, and he's got the dudes on the outside to make that a bigger part of their offense. So
yeah, and I think that that's a great point too, and it's good to give context to his performance. Like it took him, I mean, Kimes said this on our podcast, 3.7 seconds to throw the football. The average is 3.4 in the NFL. So obviously, like I think that they understand who he is and what he wants to do. They're going to get the best pass protecting offensive line in football, best offensive line in football, period. They let him be him. So like first completion to Devontae Smith, like Devontae's open on the corner, but he like doesn't read it out well. He pulls it down. He kind of loses a little bit of ground, scrambles to his right, and then makes the completion. So the ball got where it needed to go. It just didn't happen in the way that, Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow would get that done. So I think that that's, again, like you've built a team to support the quarterback, much like the Detroit Lions have built a team to support Jared Goff, right? Like that's good. When you don't have a top shelf guy, you need to understand what their weaknesses are and then kind of fill in around that so that they don't have to be in their weaknesses all the time. And Philadelphia, because how talented they are offensively, have done that perfectly. So, talk about something else to learn from Philly. And again, this is hard to kind of navigate because they've hit on their last, their first, second, and third round picks for the last 4 years are all starting contributing members to the team, which is insane. So do that, but fill in the roster to maximize your best players, specifically the quarterback.
For sure. And to finish what I was saying, we've brought it all the way back around, is the Chiefs didn't not address some of their weaknesses. They tried, but between injuries, stupidity, and bad drafting, they've got holes. And so, they've been trying to fix receiver since they traded Tyreek. They look like they had someone in Rashee Rice, and he was a dope all offseason and then got hurt. So there's your receiver problem. They've got a guy that, assuming that all this legal stuff plays out and he heals his ACL, he'll be back next year. And that helps them tremendously. They tried to address offensive line. They in the third round 2 years ago and in the second round last year, they took left tackles. Neither one of them was any good to start. And maybe Suamatia winds up being really good. Like he was super young, super raw, and there was some stuff where you're wondering like how mature is he coming into this, but he's so talented that you wonder if 2 years from now is that no longer looked at as a bust. But like for this year, it didn't help them out. And so they have this hole at left tackle, on down the list. Like they've tried to address their needs, but you have like two bad quote unquote drafts in a row. And you go from the two-time defending champion to getting housed in the Super Bowl by a team that didn't miss for 3 years in a row. Like that, and that also
and bad is relative too. Like I mean, like Xavier Worthy's been a hit for them. I would say he's going to be a good player. But then you have Suamatia in the second round, and then you look at the linebackers they've drafted who've all hit over the last couple of years, but they've been later round picks, and so it's just like. That's what drafting is. I think I don't know exactly what it is, but it feels like it's between like a 35 and a 40% hit rate is a good draft. But like the Eagles are way on the other end of variance.
They're like
there.
At 80%. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they've made good moves and they made smart decisions. So I'm not like detracting. Well, and
they get
from
lucky
that.
with a guy like Bond too, to where he goes from a guy who's a mediocre to bad outside linebacker, and he's defensive player of the year candidate. Like finalist, he's in the montage at the NFL honors for defensive player of the year as inside linebacker. So there's an element of luck, coaching, scouting. Like they just had it all come together. And like I think the good news is that I don't think that they're gonna be better next year. They might be close to as good, which is terrifying. But like Milton Williams is going to go get paid in free agency, so they'll be a little worse along the line. Josh Sweat is probably going to get paid in free agency. But also I think it's hilarious that their big offseason signing was Bryce Huff. He was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They paid Devin White twice as much as Zach Bond. Devin, I don't even know if he's still on the team. I don't know if he made it out of training camp.
He got cut. He got cut
Yeah.
like I want to say week 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, we'll see what they do because obviously these guys are so young. I think they're the third youngest roster in the league that a lot of these guys are going to come back and better. Like, Mitchell will somehow be better. DeJean will be better. Carter, God forbid, if he is better. But they will not have the depth, I think, next year because they're going to now have to, like, Bond was on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, I think it was.
Like,
He's
same with
make,
Mekhi Becton, though, too.
Yeah,
like, those types of guys are, they're going to get paid for sure.
They're going to get paid, and it's the same question that Washington has, right? Which we'll get to here in a second. Like, they now have to make choices of, like, okay, you guys crushed it. Now curse the Super Bowl. How many of these guys do you want to bring back and get paid? If I'm Philly, like, I'm paying Zach Bond a lot of money to keep him around, but, like, what does that mean for the rest of my roster? And so that's, I think, the hope for the rest of the NFC is they're not going to be quite as deep. And I will say this, too. Philly, from a health standpoint, had a pretty easy year, and that is hard to repeat in the NFL. And so I'm not wishing ill will or ill health on any of their players, obviously, but this is all before everyone's like, oh my God, the Eagles are going to run the NFL for the next 5 years. It's like, the chances that this confluence of circumstances comes together again like this is slim. I also don't know that I'd put anybody ahead of them as favorites for 2025.
I mean, I'd probably put Kansas City ahead of them because they got a better quarterback, but that's besides the point.
Kansas City's got a lot of questions, though, too.
Yeah, it's true. And, like, I think they have the most people, like, leaving in free agency or up for free agent contracts.
Kansas City, by the way, the only team with more or fewer players under contract than Washington. So that's certainly something we're going to be talking about a lot.
But I do think you look at Mekhi Becton, he's playing at a Pro Bowl caliber year on like $1 million, which is crazy for an offensive lineman, right? Zach Bond, like, to get his level of, like, again, we talked about the defense. Like, to me, he might be the number one driver of their success, like, on defense. And so he's probably going to go, right? He should go if I was him, right? If
or he'll stay because they'll pay him like he went.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, but though, like, think about, like, big subtractions possibly from the defense and from the offense. Like, I like Tyler Steen a lot, their backup right guard, but he didn't play as well as Mekhi Becton did this year, and I don't think he ever will because Mekhi Becton's like one of one freak in the NFL, right? So those are the types of decisions that, again, they just kind of put dents in the armor. You know what I mean? And that's what's been happening to Kansas City for the last 4 years is you kind of get a little sluggish drafting, your free agent hits don't hit exactly right, and you look at New Orleans back, they had that really excellent draft where they drafted kind of like 5 future Hall of Famers, and you're like, oh, damn. And then they're good, and then they're not good. And it's like because you didn't hit consistently. That's the thing about the draft. That's the thing about free agency is it's hard to be consistent for long periods of time. And I think, to your point, that's like the luck. Those are like the luckiest free agent signings of all time. You take an on-ball linebacker, you put him at off-ball, and he becomes like one of the best linebackers in football. You take a retread guard who plays at a Pro Bowl level. Like those things just don't happen consistently.
Yeah, I would even say that's nice to what Mekhi Becton has been. You take a failed tackle, and make him into a Pro Bowl guard.
And then you've hit on all of your picks for the last 4 years of the first 3. Like, what? Like, talk about, like, think about, like, so Fred was saying, like, we were talking about which is easier to find the all-star quarterback or do what Philly did. Like, find your top 5 quarterback or do what Philly did. And statistically, I would say it's harder to do what Philly did. And we know how hard it is to find a generational quarterback. Because think about it. You're just rolling dice, right? And you got to hit 7s on 4 defensive linemen, which they did. You got to hit 7s on a linebacker that no one thought was going to hit. You got to hit 7s on 5 secondary players, 5 offensive linemen, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a running back. Are you kidding me? Like, it just seems impossible to do that consistently. So in terms of, like, which is easier, we know how hard it is to find a quarterback. Like, what they did with the roster is probably the hardest thing I've ever, like, it's statistically, like, almost impossible to do. So I do think there will be a regression from them. I think they're still very, very good, obviously, but I think there'll be a little bit of a regression.
They do have a ton of their guys under contract, though, and their cap table's stupid. The way they've structured these contracts, like, guys for next year, the cap number they have is so small for a lot of these guys. Now,
they're all rookies. A lot of them on their rookie deals. Like,
I'm
talking
about
on his
vets.
rookie deal.
I'm talking about the vets. Like, the way that they structure these guys is crazy. Let me see if I can pull it up. This is 26. Let's see. Oh, but it's the base salary numbers. Like the base salary numbers next year, the cap hits are a little bit higher obviously because signing bonuses, options, whatever. But like, here's the base salaries for next year. Jalen Hurts 1.17, AJ Brown 1.17, Lane Johnson 1.2, Mailata 1.17, Slay 1.2, Goddard 1.2, Devontae Smith 1.17, Barkley 1.6, Landon Dickerson 1.17. Then you get down to Jalen Carter's next on the list, 1.03, because he's on his rookie deal. But that's the guys in order of cap hits and their base salary. Now the cap numbers, Jalen's 21, AJ's 17, Lane's 17, on down the list. But still, those are not bad numbers. 26 is where some of it comes due. Where Jalen's got actually no, wait, is it 26 or 27? 27. Yeah, Hurts is going to count like 41 million towards the cap. So there's, and then 2029, you have a $97 million cap hit for Jalen Hurts. So obviously, you'll be restructuring before then. But they've been able to push some of this money later in the cap. Like in 2029. Jordan Mailata has got a base salary of $50 million and a $35 million cap number. I don't even know how that works. Yeah. But that according to Over the Cap. So like they've done some creative structuring, and I think that's another lesson too. Like that takes some cash from the owner to be able to do some of this stuff, to pay guys up front and have the contracts work the way they're working, which gives you flexibility year over year. And so that's something that certainly I'm sure Adam Peters has gone to Josh Harris and been like, hey, so this is how Philly's able to do this from a structure standpoint. Let's copy that. And so that's something that I think you can take as well. But it's going to be a fun off season, which brings us to our mailbag. 6 o'clock, we get back to the Commanders here on the Hoffman Show. We'll take a look at ESPN's way too early 2025 NFL Power Rankings, and we will tier them off into our own tier rankings that we do during the season. Do the Commanders make the cut as a prime contender entering 2025-26? The answer at 6 p.m. Right now, though, Anthony, I think that we should talk about the sporting event that deep down, I think we always knew that we needed. And we are getting it, and it is as good as we thought it could be, and more. Unrivaled, the off-season, if you will, women's basketball league that has taken about 35, 36 of the top, let's call it 45 players in the world. Absolutely star-studded. Basically, the only two players of the top flight players that are missing from this league in the women's basketball world are Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. Both decided they weren't going to play this year. There's definitely a chance, I think, that Clark plays next year. We'll see about A'ja if she wants to get in on the act next year. But outside of that, I mean, Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, they're the two co-founders of the league. It's a 3-on-3 league that also has a 1-on-1 tournament, which started last night. And we have for years wanted an NBA 1-on-1 tournament. And the ladies are giving us what we've always wanted in terms of the best basketball players in the world playing 1-on-1. And, buddy, it is A+. First of all, one of the questions I had going into this is, like, what are the rules? Because you can play 1-on-1 a whole bunch of different ways. You can have just pure free-for-all, where you just play the way that I think a lot of us kind of played, especially early growing up. You can have a more structured, like, oh, it's 2-dribble or 3-dribble, whatever. And what they did was they made it a 7-second shot clock. Defensive rebound. There are two players on the outside. Like, some of them were, I think, players. Sometimes it was like an assistant coach or whoever. But they call it the outlet player. So you get the defensive rebound. You throw the ball to your outlet player. That clears that. Once you clear the 3-point line, you get the ball back. And now that kind of fixes the ever one-on-one problem of how do you engage from having without having a live dribble. So can you do something from triple threat? And you fix that because now you're receiving a pass. And like sometimes in one-on-one, every time you get a defensive rebound, you check up, or often you'll check up, and that's a way to do it. This kind of formalizes that. Offensive rebounds are live. The shot clock resets to 5. It's really well done, I think, in all aspects. It's make it take it, which is a classic thing that's unique to one-on-one. Love that. And yeah, man, like all the setup is great, and then you get to the product where you have these ladies just absolutely cooking each other, including upset of the night, the homie, friend of the show, Aaliyah Edwards, who was like, hey, you got to root for me. And I was like, Aaliyah, done. You're the only person down there that's truly a friend of the show. I mean, Shakira Austin, it's great. I love talking to Shakira every year, who also, by the way, wanted an upset last night. But Aaliyah Edwards takes down her UConn Husky sister, Brianna Stewart, the number 1 seed, the co-founder of the league, and she did it, Anthony, 12-0 in the quickest game of the night. How about our girl, Aaliyah Edwards, rocking it down at Unrivaled 1-on-1? The drama, the competitiveness, the ball. This was awesome, bro.
It was definitely crazy. I will say I did not have Aaliyah Edwards beating Brianna Stewart, but to also do it 12-0, give her a donut.
Yo,
I
threes
would have never
took her off the dribble.
Left hand, off hand, didn't matter. Step back. No, we definitely needed this. I'm excited for I guess the second batch of one-on-ones for round 1.
Well, so that was round 1 last night. Round 2 is tonight, which, by the way, because they've had to reconfigure their bracket a little bit because they've got
some people got hurt,
some girls that are banged up, and so Aaliyah actually, by winning that, got a bye because the other people that like she would have faced, both of them were out, so she automatically advances. She doesn't play tonight. I thought about seeing if we can get her on the show today, but we got a little jammed up. But we'll see if we can connect with her soon. By the way, speaking of Mystics stuff, the Mystics introductory press conference for their new GM and head coach, initially scheduled for last week, got rescheduled, is now 2 weeks ago, now going to be tomorrow. So I will sit down with both of them. Those interviews will go at Hoffman W Sports, and we'll try to play them here on the show as well later as the week goes. But yeah, she's off tonight, and the second round of one-on-one is tonight. And it goes through the week, and then I think the 3-on-3 part of this is wrapping up over the next week and a half or so as well. So, yeah, I mean the three. I don't know how much of the 3-on-3 you've taken in, but like that's been awesome too.
Now I watched the 3-on-3 as well, but I think one-on-one is just different though, just because you're out there on your own, you're going out there showing off what bag you have, and the fact that we getting upsets like Rakia, she upset Jackie Young. We have Shakira upsetting
Chelsea Gray.
So it's just like, and these are some of the better players that we see around the league. We see Brianna Stowe. We see everybody talking about Chelsea Gray. All right, yeah, watch out for these first and second year players.
Nobody's supposed to have a bigger bag than Chelsea Gray.
I'm saying.
And Shakira was like, nah. And it's been interesting because sometimes styles make fights. Like, Kalia Copper beat Aaliyah Boston, but she wasn't happy about it. She's like, damn, that big girl made me work because, like, Aaliyah is a big and Ka is a guard, and that was not very fun for Kalia Copper, even if she ultimately got the job done. I think Kalia Copper's quote was, the big girls need their own bracket. Like, if you're doing that on the NBA side, it's like, all right, all dudes over 7 feet, like, y'all need your own bracket. We ain't trying to mess with you with the guards. And some of the sound bites, by the way, the sound bites have been of the post game. Raz Goldanwude was on the post game last night. Do we have both Rakia and
I have Alicia
and Alicia Gray? Okay, so Alicia Gray is a guard for the Atlanta Dream of the WNBA. Excellent player, WNBA All-Star. Maybe not as well known because she's not like on that superstar level, but a bona fide All-Star. She played with Asia Wilson at University of South Carolina. They're very close. And she played her Atlanta Dream teammate, Jordan Canada, won. And then very quickly, as will become apparent, talked to Raz Goldanwude on the sideline afterwards. And by the way, Alicia Gray, you'll find out in this interview why she is so excited to be at Unrivaled.
Oh, you always trying to get to the bag with money on the line. Like, who don't want no money?
I know that's right.
Oh, I thought you had the whole interview, Anthony.
Oh, the 20-second one?
I'm talking about, like, I think the whole 90 seconds was, like, some of the funniest TV that I've seen. It's like, we were watching it. I turned to Rachel, and I go, this is why real things exist. She was exhausted, tired. And that's the thing. It's like, how long? These games are not very long, but because they're one-on-one, they're super intense. And she's like, yeah, she ran me. Like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. Like, it was so funny. And then she got to the end, and Raz asked her, like, hey, you got the whole interview? All right, let's just run the tape.
Alicia, Wednesday you lost to this team by 23 points tonight. A win by
that's not the right one.
How impressed are you with this team?
It's not. My bad.
That's all right. We'll find it for real things. Rakia Jackson, also hilarious in the post game. Where she was asked about facing Nafisa Collier next. And she, by the way, Nafisa Collier, let's remember, one of the co-founders of the league. And Rakia Jackson, who was a rookie last year for the LA Sparks, goes, I'm just going to get physical with her and hope the refs aren't on their bull crap, quote unquote. And we were texting her in this, dying, laughing.
Yeah. Hey, look, she keeping it a bean, though, man. Don't let them refs, be the star of the show. That's all I'm saying.
No, what do you think this is, the NFL?
Maybe.
Yeah, so Unrivaled one-on-one tournament, part 2 tonight. It's on, you can watch on Max or on True TV and TNT. Just hilariously funny. By the way, the announcing's so good on this. Like, the coverage, I would say, in general, is so good. Lisa Leslie's doing color, along with Sarah Kustok, who calls Nets games on the men's side. Brendan Glasheen, who I actually know, he's a Syracuse guy. He does the Connecticut Sun games for the WNBA, but was tabbed as their play-by-play announcer. He's great. So the coverage has been outstanding. Studio, game coverage, the one-on-one coverage. Like, they're just the whole league. Like, they did this right. And the product has been fantastic. And I think, Anthony, it puts pressure on the men to be like, hey, your All-Star weekend's been booty for a decade.
Yeah, we need the NBA to follow after the WNBA. Bring the one-on-one game.
Follow after credit where it's due. Follow
Unrivaled.
After Unrivaled.
Unrivaled. Sorry.
And I do think that is interesting. Like, of course, when like two W teammates play each other, they'll reference that. But generally speaking, they're not really referencing the WNBA. They're like, we're our own thing. Yeah, of course, it's the same players and some of the best in the world. But it has been fantastic ball that Unrivaled has put on down there in Miami. All right, when we get back, we had two show business things to take care of. One, we have to revisit a moment from yesterday's show that is now going viral on the internet. And also, I need to ask Anthony for some ideas on what I should do with my night tonight, because I'm in a situation that normally he's in, that I'm not normally in. So
hey, you ain't got to say it like that, man.
we're at different places in our lives, Anthony.
That is fair.
I realized as I said that came off as, maybe we'll skip that part. Well, more Hoffman show next. Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. We'll get to our power rankings, kind of the last ones of the 24 season, first ones of the 25 season, if you will. It's admittedly a very silly exercise because, you know, things change with free agency and trades and all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of teams we don't know who their quarterback is going to be. But going into the offseason, we will give what we got in terms of power rankings with the assistance of the ones that ESPN put out coming up at 6 o'clock. Right now, though, a couple of things just to clean up from yesterday's show, Anthony. First of all, we have, as promised, shared with the internet the video of you missing your field goal kick at the college football playoff. If you weren't listening in the 4 o'clock hour yesterday, truly one of the most fun segments we've done in a long time. Meg McDonald stopped by because we were live at Capital One Arena and she was doing some stuff, and it worked out that she was able to stop by the show. And we talked a little bit about the Super Bowl. And it was funny because last night I was telling Rachel about the show, and I couldn't even remember how we got onto some of the stuff that we were talking about. Like, we literally just got off the rails with Meg in a way that I enjoyed, because I like when our show goes off the rails. It's fun, where I'm just like, whoa, I'm driving this car and I don't know where it's going. But it ultimately wound up with you saying with confidence that you could make a 25-yard field goal and then sending us a video where you missed it.
Yeah, I think it started with Meg talking about kicking a 20-yard field goal, and then she asked you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Upon further review, I was very confident as well. But again, I've actually kicked field goals before, not like with any. And again, someone made a really good point in the comments section already, that the game changer is a 25-yard, what I'm going to call naked field goal. Not one that you take with no clothes on, one where there is no line in front of you that you have to kick over, and certainly no 6'5", 340-pound men trying to block it. Just you and either a holder or a kicking stand and the field goal posts. That's what we're talking about. An NFL, like, hey, set, hut, bang, you got to go? That sounds awful.
Yeah, that's not happening.
My I will make one of three confidence goes way down.
Yeah.
I'd be also terrified of getting my leg snapped in half.
That would be scary.
But you were so confident that you said, not only would I make it, but I've done it. And then proceeded to send me a video, which we then watched live on the air, of you missing a field goal.
Yeah, I wish I had actually watched the video before I even, said I did, but
I don't also know, how do you have video of it and not know whether it went in or not?
Because it happened
video
2 years ago. To be honest, I think I kicked it twice, though, Craig. I think the video that we have is... Why are you looking at me like that, Craig? The line wasn't that long. So I'm pretty sure I probably went back. I'm one of those guys that, I'm determined to, make it. Do it until I make it.
Look, yesterday... I blanket believed you, and then Meg destroyed the both of us for being overconfident men, which we deserved. I am not letting you get away with that today. I'm not. I will need to see the other attempt and video, and I will need to see the ball go through the uprights, not miss wide on the I made it, but it had, I missed it. Sorry. It had the distance.
It had the distance, Craig. Now, I'll get you another video. Maybe a modern one. Maybe I won't do it tomorrow. It's too much snow outside.
No, you're not Adam Vinatieri.
No.
Yeah. No. When it is nice out.
Yes.
We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna have you come down to my neighborhood. Or actually, honestly, why don't we just do it at prep?
I'm about to say, yeah.
You literally live outside a track in a football field. We will run 40s, and we will kick field goals.
Okay.
Probably in that order.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
I'm afraid of pulling something in the field. Are you afraid of pulling something more in a field goal or a 40?
40.
I'm afraid of more damage being done kicking.
Just because I've done it already, though, Craig.
I run regularly. I do not kick regularly.
I don't do either regularly. I need to do one of them more. I need to run more.
Yeah. All right. We have. Well, I think we saved the Wizards deal for maybe 6:30.
Okay.
There's something very funny that happened last night at the Wizards game that I'm excited to share with you. Also, I saw Victor Wembanyama play basketball in person for the first time, and I almost just said holy S in French, and then I realized that's not a way around the FCC. I can't do that. Putting it in another language is still illegal. So holy moly, that was an experience. We'll talk about it coming up at 6:30. Plus, next, we have the NFL's Power Rankings for 2025 from ESPN, which we will then subdivide into our NFL tiers. If you are a longtime listener of the show, 6 o'clock on Tuesdays, we have done our NFL tiers all season long. So let's set up the tiers going into the offseason next on the Hoffman Show. This here is the final hour of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Remember, if you listen for an hour every single day and you are logged in on the Odyssey app, you are auto-magically entered to win our sweepstakes that could send you and 3 friends and $20K to Las Vegas, the opening weekend of the college basketball tournaments. So you can just listen every single day. Check that out. Be logged in on the Odyssey app, and off you go to Vegas. This is a national contest. So for more, you can check out our website, team980.com and odyssey.com as well. All right, Anthony. 6 o'clock on Tuesdays during the NFL season, we did our tier rankings for most weeks. We had 4 categories. We actually created a 5th category this year because there were some teams that just didn't fit. Our 4 basic categories are prime contenders, which are teams that we would not be surprised if they won the Super Bowl. Puncher's chance, which is we're not surprised if you can make an AFC or NFC championship game. Interesting, but not quite good enough. Maybe make the playoffs, probably not. But if you make the playoffs, like, you're not going anywhere. Think Houston Texans this year, although they actually won a playoff game. So what do we know about anything? And then no chance in hell was the 4th one. And then the Jets were so bad this year, and there were so many teams that had, like the Browns, that had just true dysfunction, that we created a 5th bottom tier called actual hell, and that was special. I don't know that there's any teams that are going to wind up in actual hell this going into the offseason. But what I want to do, Anthony, is take ESPN's power rankings. So we're gonna use someone else's rankings as a guide here. But then I want to draw the lines in terms of the tiers and kind of mix their rankings with our rankings. So interestingly enough, well, everyone's like, oh my God, the Eagles are so good. They're the best team. They're going to whatever. They have the Eagles 4th in their way too early power rankings. And this is from ESPN's NFL Nation staff. So like all of their beat reporters. They have Kansas City as number 1. And the write-up is, yes, the Chiefs lost in Super Bowl 59, but they have a loaded roster. General manager said our free agency will be our draft in the offseason with regard to key player acquisition because of a tight salary cap situation, a long list of the Chiefs' own potential free agents they would like to re-sign. Kansas City will have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds because they got the extra 3rd-round pick by trading L'Jarius Sneed to the Titans last offseason. So there are the 2 teams that actually have the most, or the fewest, I should say, players under contract for 2025 are the Chiefs have the fewest, and the Commanders are next. So the Commanders have a ton of cap space, but they have to sign so many players that, like, cap space per roster spot, they're actually much further down the list. The Chiefs don't actually have a ton of cap space, but they still, have more players even than the Commanders they need to fill. But they still have Pat Mahomes. They still have Creed Humphrey. They still have Joe Thuney. They still have Chris Jones. They still have George Karlaftis. Like, they have a lot of dudes they got to take care of. And actually Karlaftis might be on the list of guys they need to re-up. But they also have a ton of guys that are incumbents in-house, and they still have Pat Mahomes. I don't know that I'd put them number 1 by any stretch of the imagination, but I certainly think that they are prime contenders entering next season.
No, definitely are. Again, they have arguably the best quarterback in the game. I think you have that, and then you also have the continuity of, having your offensive coordinator, having your defensive coordinator. Like, a lot of the teams at the top have either lost, a coordinator or 2, and have to, retool. So I think that the Chiefs are the safe bet just because now you just got to, get some players back healthy and, fill some holes. So
For
I
sure.
like the Chiefs, always.
For sure. I think the other the team that's second might be the team that I have first. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, the MVP. They didn't lose either coordinator. They hung on to Joe Brady. Obviously, Sean McDermott is kind of the guy who runs their defense in a lot of ways anyway. They need to add a difference maker for sure, but they did some cap stuff last year that this past year was supposed to be their down year. If they can just add the piece this offseason, I think they become the co-favorites with another team we're going to talk about in a second in the AFC.
Offense or defense when you say the piece?
I was thinking offense.
Okay.
But honestly, they kind of need a defensive playmaker too. Like they need when they acquired Von Miller a couple years ago, they're hoping he'd be the guy, and Von got hurt and had some off the field stuff and just hasn't been that guy. But they also have some, like, their defense is good. What happens if they add a couple dudes in the secondary? I think that becomes a very interesting thing. Like, if they can upgrade on their safety position, Milano's still really good at linebacker. So I think that the Bills are, corner. I mean, they also had, part of the corner stuff for them, though, was injury related. They can stay healthy, which is always a part of the equation. The Lions, they have third. I mean, look, they're going to need to make some adjustments. They lost both coordinators. But roster-wise, like, they were 15-2, and they did that most of the season without Aiden Hutchinson. They're going to get Hutchinson back. They'll bring back a bunch of other dudes. It really just comes down to how big of a loss. And obviously, how big of a loss are Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn? They're huge losses, but they are ultimately coordinators, and hopefully you can replace them. How good in year one of 2 new coordinators can the Lions be? That's the question.
Yeah, the roster is filthy. You lose the D tackle McNeil, Hutchinson. Like, they're going to be a problem next year, and I think that was their problem towards the end of the year. All those injuries ended up, adding up and, being the cause of their downfall.
They've got the Eagles fourth. They have huge decisions to make in terms of paying huge money to Zach Bond, which I would imagine they will do. But they're going to lose Milton Williams. He was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate who drove the entire defensive shift from being like, meh, to, oh my God, this is a historically great defense. Hell yeah, I'd pay Zach Bond a whole bunch of money.
All right.
Would you not?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough.
Why?
Just because I feel like linebacker. I'm not gonna say linebacker is one of those positions that you can, get a guy to, come in and play. But when you have those guys up front that are doing what they're doing, it makes it.
But it's not about what Bond does going forward. It's about what Bond does going backwards. His coverage, like, there are less than 5 guys in the league who are worth paying at linebacker at the level that I would pay Zach Bond, and it's guys like Fred Warner who can cover, like legit cover. The speed he brings, not to mention what he brings as a blitzer and all the stuff he does going forward.
Yeah.
His ability to go backwards and play in coverage is a game changer for this defense, and they cannot get that easily replaced.
You're right. I do think there's probably going to be teams out there that really want to offer him top dollar, and
if I'm
it comes
Eagles,
down
I match it.
20 mils, 20 M's a year. You match it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, they're really good at structuring deals to make it not palatable. Look, it's going to cost you Josh Sweat. It's going to cost you Milton Williams. That's fine. Like, here's the thing. I trust Howie Roseman, if I'm Philly, to replace those guys.
Okay.
And the way they've coached they always seem to have another guy. I mean, shoot, Jalix Hunt. Like, Josh Sweat's replacement's already there.
Yeah.
It's crazy how good they are
Yep.
at drafting defensive ends and finding the right. And they always seem to have a defensive tackle fall into their lap. They have Jordan Davis. They have Jalen Carter. Like, okay, who's the next guy up? They'll figure
Bryce
it out.
Huff, he was a healthy scratch.
I know.
Like, that
like,
was
he's
crazy.
still floating around. Like,
Yeah.
we'll see what they do at edge. But, like, you can't go find what Zach Bond does.
Okay, that's
which
fair.
is crazy because I'd never heard of Zach Bond 12 months ago.
I'm saying, and it's 1 year, so like you really gambling, but
you're gambling on a guy that was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. I would pay Zach Bond a bunch of money. He drives what they do defensively. He is so unique. And DeJean and Kenyon, like, those guys are rookies. Like, they cost nothing. So yeah, that's the situation in Philly. They've got the Ravens at 5th. And I think they are the co-favorites in the AFC with Buffalo. And then I have Kansas City, depending on how many guys that come back and what happens with Kelsey and whatever else. Like, I think Baltimore, we'll see what happens on their offensive line. Obviously, Ronnie Stanley is a free agent. But Henry's back for 1 more year, as long as he doesn't fall off a cliff. I think they're just the level Lamar played at. They have to be right up there. And defensively, I think they'll continue to get better. Guys like Nate Wiggins in their 2nd year. So I think they're good. And then they actually have Washington 6th, Anthony. They just got to keep on doing what they've been doing. I've talked ad nauseum about, and we'll continue to talk ad nauseum about the Commanders offseason, but ultimately, like, Jaden Daniels, no flukiness there. He's just good at everything. So as long as he's good at everything and they continue to build around, they're good. And then they have the Packers at 7. They have the Chargers at 8, the Bengals at 9, the Vikings at 10, the Texans at 11. Are any of those teams Like, if I tell you I would draw the line at 6, I would say ESPN, even though I disagree with some of the order here, generally got it right here. And that the elite contenders end with Washington, Baltimore, Philly, Detroit, Buffalo, Kansas City. You give me those 6 teams, I'm happy to give you the field. Is that too tight of a circle, or is there someone else who needs to be let in?
The Bengals need to be let in. Joe Burrow, man, that's a bad man right there, Craig.
I know he is. He also played more snaps than any other starting quarterback in the NFL this year, and they went 9-8.
Wasn't because of him, because of that defense.
How are they going to fix it? They just fired Lou Anarumo, who's one of the best DCs in the league. I mean, like, I know they hired someone who's also
they didn't have the
very
personnel
good.
though on the back end.
Yeah, and Trey Hendrickson is a free agent.
Yep. Well, they got to retool.
I do not trust them to retool.
Oh, okay.
That's my thing with them. They're probably going to lose T. They have to sign Jamar to a bunch of money, and maybe they franchise tag Hendrickson, but that's an expensive franchise tag. Like, I would just want to probably bring him in on real money. So, yeah, I don't know how they solve their contract. Like, because they refuse to pay people and sign them early because they are a cash-poor team and act like it, they're in deep trouble. I think that they belong puncher's chance, even though Joe Burrow's awesome.
That's fair.
Vikings,
I mean, outside of that,
Texans.
I wouldn't throw any other team in there. Definitely not going to go with the Chargers.
I think the Chargers are still a little too untalented. And I think their ceiling's a lot lower because of, what Greg Roman does offensively. Greg Roman's a fantastic coordinator who's going to get you between the 15th and the 8th best offense. He's not going to get you better than the 8th best offense.
Yeah. I think the Texans could be interesting, though.
The Texans, I think, could be interesting. The Vikings, I have too many questions about quarterback right now. Do they go with JJ, who I obviously like a lot, or do they bring Darnold back? And either way, I don't know that year 2 of Sam Darnold, I'm like, that'll go as well as it did last year. Because he had a ton of turnover-worthy plays and not as many turnovers as he should have. Or JJ is basically a rookie. So as much as I love KOC and think he's fantastic, like, I don't know that they're anything more than a puncher's chance. Okay, so that knocks out most of our first 2 categories. There's a couple of the teams I want to throw in puncher's chance. We'll talk about them next. But first, let's get the latest on the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want at Wawa with customizable crispy or roasted chicken sandwiches. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Craig Hoffman, super producer Anthony Haney, going through the NFL power rankings that ESPN put out, and we're kind of tearing them off. Actually, we're not kind of. We are tearing them off into our own tiers that we use during the regular season for our power rankings. So, with that, Anthony, we decided that there were 6 teams, including the Commanders, that were prime contenders. We would not be surprised if they were in the Super Bowl next year. And that was Kansas City, Buffalo, Detroit, Philly, and Baltimore and Washington. Those are the 6 teams that we have in their own tier. Those are the first 6 teams in ESPN's power rankings. And we think, we dispute some of the order that ESPN has them in. We think those are the correct 6 teams. I think at this point in the offseason, a team that goes in puncher's chance, aka we're not surprised if they are in the NFC Championship game next year or the AFC Championship game next year, but we don't think they'll ultimately be able to win it and get to the Super Bowl. I think this category is going to be enormous because we just don't know what some of these teams are going to do. Green Bay, obviously, and there's a chance that by the end of free agency in the draft that we have Green Bay and who they have as number 7 as in prime contenders. They have Jordan Love. The injuries were a mess for them. They need to make some distinct improvements. I think they need to bring in a couple of vets, but I think that there's a path for Green Bay to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I expect them to go get maybe Devontae Adams. But they definitely need a veteran in that wide receiver.
He knows the address for Lambeau. Let's put it that way. The Chargers, if they make a couple of moves, I think they can wind up bumping up. The Bengals, as we talked about, you wanted to put them up already. I need to see what they do. They're too much of a wild card roster-wise with Hendrickson and Chase and Higgins all being free agents. You can have 3 or 4 best players be free agents and be in elite or prime contenders. Sorry.
Yeah, is there a way for them to keep T and Chase, though?
Yeah, pay a bunch of money and then just, put the rest of the roster together with bubble gum and scotch tape.
Okay. Hey, look, it might work out. It might not.
I've heard worse plans than having 2 elite receivers with, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the game.
Yeah.
Vikings, definitely let's see what they do. And obviously, I don't know that they can get in prime contenders by the start of the regular season because I just think their quarterback situation is too up in the air. I'm going to need to see Darnold either do it again or JJ play at a really high level before I put them up there. The Texans are interesting. They've already done one thing they need to do, which is switch out their offensive coordinator. Because their protection plan was booty last year. So they have brought in some people with some more offensive line experience. I expect them to be a lot better in that area. I do think the Texans could leapfrog up this list for sure if they make a couple of smart moves to support C.J. Stroud this offseason.
Yeah, their defense, was pretty good this season. But offensively, man, the run game struggled after the first couple of weeks. And then they also couldn't protect C.J. C.J. also wasn't himself or the same guy that, was accurate his rookie season. So I'm expecting him to also bounce back.
With what he had to deal with. And
running for his life.
They hired Nick Caley, who's very highly thought of, who is passing game coordinator and tight ends coach. And I always love a tight ends coach is my OC because those are tight ends. You have to understand the pass game and the run game and how it all works together. So love that hire for Houston. Speaking of the Rams, they're coming in for ESPN at number 12. They could be
a little bit.
They could be interesting, but not quite good enough for prime contenders by the end of this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, did you see Matthew Stafford though? Rumors to New York.
I hate that for him.
I mean, I would hate it for him as well. But
wait, which New York? Jets or Giants?
The Giants.
I mean, look, him and Malik Neighbors. That's the best version of the Giants that they can have this year.
Yeah.
The problem is it doesn't solve the Giants' long-term problem at quarterback, and it probably makes them too good in 2025 to have a top pick in 2026.
Yeah.
I think this list if you're Brian Dable and you got to win, I get it. And you're Joe Shane, you got to win, I get it. The Niners are coming in at 13. They're going to pay Brock Purdy. Then what? I think with Robert Saleh, yeah, Anthony, just for those listening, not watching, just threw up a big old giant. I don't know. Robert Saleh's back. That should help them defensively. They had a bunch of injuries, but are those guys going to come back and be good, or are they old and banged up now? They're going to trade Debo. What is Brock Purdy? I mean, Brock Purdy was awesome for a lot of the year until he went out. So they're going to pay him. And then what? Like, I just trust Kyle that like they will probably be better than 6-11.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if the like they just kind of have run their course and they're going to need a talent influx. Now they're always one draft away, but probably their best talent scout is now the general manager of the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I think the McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Ayuk, all those injuries definitely played a part. And I mean, they can get.
If Christian McCaffrey comes back and is awesome, then they're going to be good. And if he doesn't, then they're in trouble. Yeah. Denver, I think they're in puncher's chance. The way their defense was, they come back, they do that. Year number 2 for Bo Nix in this Sean Payton offense. They have the guys like Mims who they figured out how to use in a major way. Like, and by the way, they don't have like the Russell Wilson cap hit got eaten, so they should actually be able to have some roster maneuverability. I think they're mega interesting. Seattle, now we're starting to get in cutoff land from puncher's chance.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really like Seattle, to be honest. I mean, they do get Pete Carroll though.
No, Pete went to Vegas.
The Raiders.
But year number 2 in Mike McDonald's scheme with the talent they have defensively, I think this team could be kind of Denver-y, where their defense is nasty and offensively you're just like, huh? Yeah. I just, how close are we to the end of Geno? And also people that think that Geno's bad. And I'm not a Geno guy, but like I understand how good he is. DK would be so much better if he didn't have crappy quarterback play. Don't say that if you want to sound smart about football. Geno's good. Yeah. Tampa.
They deserve to be here, Craig. They battled so many injuries defensively. Offensively, they carry them. I mean, Baker was able to carry them.
Just how high is their ceiling, though?
I don't know. They need another receiver,
NFC Championship caliber team? I guess if they re-sign Godwin and the OC situation plays out for them again in a good way, sure, I could see it happening. But I think they're probably going to wind up losing Godwin and they start it costs them enough that there's other holes in the roster and they wind up interesting but not quite good enough in our preseason rankings. So I think we may have hit it.
Okay.
Steelers, I got to see what they do at quarterback.
We don't know about quarterback.
Cowboys.
We don't know about a lot of things.
I don't know about their coaching staff, but they still have Dak, CD, and Micah Parsons, which should be good enough to make you certainly interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Falcons with Penix.
I'm excited for Penix. He needed more time, more reps.
I think they were interesting, but not quite good enough as of now. There's a chance that if there's a chance I talk myself into them being the favorites in the NFC South and a puncher's chance. Dolphins, their vibes are bad in Miami. Don't like that. Cardinals, I still think that they're just not talented enough. Bears, no idea. They're interesting as hell. I don't think they're going to be good enough in year 1, but there's a chance if Ben Johnson pulls some Ben Johnson-ish.
Yeah.
The Colts, your boys, interesting. Not good enough.
Yeah.
Patriots are interesting with Vrabel and Drake May.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to be quite good enough yet. And now we get to now we're kind of flirting with no chance in hell. Bryce Young was so much better for Carolina.
I think that's interesting, though.
I think that is interesting as well. Jacksonville. Honestly, Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence, with Cohen's record with quarterbacks, they're kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. The Saints.
Kellen Moore.
Cool.
We don't know their quarterback, though.
I think they're in no chance. There's no chance they make the. How do the Saints make the playoffs in 2025?
Like, the thing is, Craig, people wrote the Commanders off and said no chances.
I know. But someone's got to go. We're unlikely that there's a chance.
The Jets belong in no chance.
But what if they go trade for Stafford or something?
Oh man!
And then Stafford and Garrett Wilson. Aaron Glenn's like a badass coach. That's the thing. You can talk yourself in. The Raiders, they have Pete Carroll. What if he Jim Harbaughs it up? Take some third-round rookie and take some really deep. He only did it in Seattle. That's the thing. You could talk yourself into this. The absolute no chance in hell. The Cleveland Browns are going to suck because they suck. The Giants, I mean, unless they get Matthew Stafford, probably terrible.
Cam Ward.
And the Titans are probably not going to be a very good football team next year.
No. They will draft Travis Hunter and still suck.
Okay. Those are the NFL power rankings going into the 2025 offseason. Now we see what the offseason does and see what it does to them. We'll probably do our next edition somewhere after free agency. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it was French Heritage Night last night for the Wizards, and that led to some fun off the court, and the very large Frenchman on it who played for the other team. Boy, was that's something to behold in person. We'll recap our night at Capital One Arena next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope everyone's getting around the DMV safely. If you're checking us out in the comfort of your own home on YouTube, that you're bundled up for the night. Snow is going to keep on coming down into the early morning. So keep your eyes peeled on your local television and radio stations for your school cancellations in the morning. Anthony, have you seen any yet? Has it already been canceled for tomorrow?
I have not received a text message just yet, but I'm anticipating we will have.
I haven't seen any yet either, but that I also don't have a lot of that stuff set up because I don't currently have kids, so I don't need to necessarily know that. What I do know is the Mystics have their intro presser tomorrow, so I will be making my way down to Capital One Arena for that, trudging through the snow to talk to new people in charge. So last night I was at Capital One Arena as we were broadcasting live. It was 24 hours ago. I was heckling fans, Anthony, in the concourse.
Oh, I remember, Craig. I remember this very well.
If you missed that, worth the podcast, worth the YouTube video. It's up at Craig Hoffman. But we then got to see Victor Wembanyama play basketball, Anthony. And have you seen Wemby play in person yet?
I have not, but I imagine that guy is extremely tall.
It's wild. Like, I just walked down, like, as I'm walking down towards the floor, and, like, first lay eyes on him, and he's still taking warm-ups, whatever. I'm just like, huh? Like, because you've seen it on TV. It looks crazy on TV. And just to see it in person, you're just like, oh, yeah. Okay. And he's firing away threes, and he's doing all that. And then he gets out there in the game and, standing next to Rashawn Holmes, who's almost 7 feet tall at the free throw line, just towering over him. You watch the way his length impacts the game, how much space he takes up on the floor. And then there's a point in the first quarter where he just starts getting it. He hit 3 threes in a row. The last one was a step back. He comes down the next time down the floor. At this point, I've got my camera on him. I put up the reel of this bucket on my Instagram at hoffman.sports. And he catches the ball in the mid-block, and, like, think of Kobe or MJ in their prime on the mid-post. Catch, dribble, shimmy, shake, and whoever the defender was got, like, a really good challenge, and he kind of double-clutched it. But he's so tall and so athletic.
It was Bilal.
And he's fading back, Bilal, and he said au revoir to his countrymen and hits a turnaround jumper. He then comes down the next play, and he can't get the ball, and he winds up, because he and Chris Paul are playing two-man game, screen assist, as Paul hits a wide-open three as they're just trying like hell to keep the ball out of Wemby's hands, leave Chris Paul wide open. He drains a three. And so it's 14 points in a row by or screen assisted by Wembanyama, and you're just like, what the hell did I just watch? And I had some stuff to do at home, so I didn't stay for the whole game. I literally turned to Toby, and I was like, I've seen enough. I get it. That was crazy. And then I went, said hi to some folks, and got out of town. But watching that game last night, and credit to the Wizards, by the way, who came back at the end of the first quarter. Vukcevic had a fantastic night, actually was their leading scorer. He led the charge at the end of the first. The game's tied throughout much of the second half. Like, it's a back-and-forth game. The Spurs ultimately have the closers, guys like De'Aaron Fox, who pull away late. Wemby winds up with 30-something. Spurs get the 10-point win. But good job by the Wizards to fight. But seeing Wemby in person, dude, that was highly recommend if you're a basketball fan. Next year when he's here, you're coming to the remote. We're gonna do the remote again, and you and I are gonna go to the game, and we're gonna stay the whole time.
Yeah, I gotta see Wemby, man. I gotta see him. Generational talent. Also, just the fact he's 7'5". To be honest, I don't think he's 7'5". I think he's taller than 7'5".
You could tell me any number, and I'd be like, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think he's 7'6" or 7'7" maybe.
Look, I mean, his arms are so long. That was the thing. Like,
where does he shop? Big and tall?
Custom.
Everything,
they don't make clothes that big. And especially not in that proportions, right? Like, dude's got a 85-inch inseam and a 32-inch or a 28-inch waist.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like, that dude is not wearing regular pants. Like, he needs a small on the drawstring and a quadruple X with an extension on it for his legs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, custom.
Yeah.
Custom. But it was French Heritage Night, not only because of obviously all the Frenchmen with the Wizards, but with Wemby in town. They decided to have French Heritage Night. And Anthony, back when I was learning French before my trip to Paris, there was I come across some reels and stuff that who knows how the things get in our algorithms. Probably Duolingo is being like, this guy's learning French, or we were searching for a bunch of French stuff on Instagram, like where to go to eat and all that kind of stuff. And I came across these two guys that did these really funny reels about the French language. And it'd be like, how do you say this? And they would say a thing. And how do you say this? And you say a thing. And then they put it all together because the things they would ask about are kind of, they all sounded the same. And so the sentences that they put together in French were ridiculous. And it was really, really funny. But it also speaks to a truth of this is what it feels like to learn French. The Wizards had those guys at the game last night, and they did one of their very silly reels with Bilal Koulibaly and Alex Sarr.
How do you say reindeer in French?
Reine.
What about queen?
Reine.
Then, how do you say kingdom?
Règne.
Rose?
Règne.
And mermaid?
Sirène.
So how do you say the alarm of the queen's 6 reindeer rules over the mermaid's kingdom of Rennes?
La sirène des sirènes de la reine règne sur le règne de la sirène de Rennes.
Nice.
Run. That's what it feels like to learn French.
Can you say that sentence?
No.
Oh, just curious, man.
No. But you know what I can say thanks to Duolingo?
What?
I can say you eat an orange. Tu manges un orange. You know what else I can say? A cat eats an orange. Un chat mange un orange.
You really got into it.
Oui.
I would love to hear you try.
What
did they say?
See.
Rain. All I got is rain.
Rain.
Right.
Because that's the thing is like the pronunciation, like where you put the emphasis on the right syllable changes the whole meaning of the word. And sometimes it's like the difference between saying like fire and bucket or whatever. I just made that one up. That's not true.
Yeah.
But maybe it is because I don't know how to say fire or bucket. But
Rain. Run.
My French is.
To be honest, Craig, so I'm going to Paris this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Would you advise me do Duolingo all the way up until?
I would advise you to do something just to know, like,
just to know.
In Paris, they're gonna be like, speak English, bro. Like you'll be fine. A lot of places even have menu. Like, do you want the French or the English menu? Like, we'll just take the English one, thank you. We don't need to be heroes. But it's a nice touch to be able to ask for a table. Or like un table pour deux. I think that's
a table for two.
Yeah.
I got that.
Or l'addition, s'il te plaît. The check, please. Like, okay. So like little things, I think are helpful to like at least say like I'm not a total moron who's totally relying on the fact that you speak English, even though underneath, like, it's not that you're actually a moron, you just don't speak the language.
Yeah.
But Paris is a very international city. Most of them speak English, especially folks who work in like restaurants and stuff. Like, we ran into a couple of issues where there was like a legit language barrier, but there was never like we couldn't call on another waiter or a waitress and be like, hey, we're so sorry. Like, our French is very bad and your colleague's English, there's some things getting lost. They'd be like, oh, it's okay. What do you need? So, yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay.
I'm sure it's not quite as friendly as it was during the Olympics in terms of the signage and everything, but you'll be fine.
Okay.
We're going to Portugal. That's our next international one in September.
Oh.
So I'm like, should I do a little bit of Portuguese? I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's between me and me. What's between us and the end of the show is real things real people said. And the real microphones, we hit that next. Anthony, you want to know what I just realized? At 6:50 here
What?
on this show on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025.
What did you realize, sir?
That for the parts of the show today where I haven't had a specific graphic about what we're talking about on the YouTube stream, where I just have the date graphic up, I never changed the date.
Really?
It says February 10th.
Wow. Wow. And I'm looking at it right now. It does say February 10th.
Yeah, that's a... Sorry about that to anybody who's watching who's like, yeah, February 10th.
You also spelled February wrong. I'm joking.
I was about to say, don't do that to me. Because I change the number like daily. But if the February's been wrong, it's been wrong the whole last month. And I don't need that on my
bad.
soul, on my heart. Ooh, buddy. Tomorrow on the show, Mike Jones. Who?
Mike Jones
from The Athletic is going to join us. Mike, of course, fresh off the Super Bowl. Well, I don't know if I use the word fresh. He's returned home from New Orleans. We'll see if Mike has regained some feelings of humanity after living in New Orleans for a week. And then I'll see Mike a couple weeks. Mike's always someone who somehow is the first person I run into in Indianapolis. Or the second person I run into in Indianapolis every year at the Combine.
That's crazy.
So the first person is always Yo Murphy. Yo is a former wide receiver who played for the St. Louis Rams and then finished his career in Tampa. And then when he got done playing, he went into performance coaching. So he's a guy who trains guys for the NFL Combine. And I've known Yo for, almost 10 years at this point through my fitness stuff because he is very close friends with Chris Gorez. And every single year, I get off my plane in Indianapolis. I walk out into the big, you know the Indy airport, like the big open area in the middle, and Yo is standing in the same exact spot waiting on his guys every single year. That is my official welcome to Indy moment. And then I get in a cab and I go down to the convention center. I typically go straight to the convention center because I can't check into my hotel or I'm close enough to my show that I'm just like, let me just get there. I have a taping. Like last year, I was like, I just got to go. I don't have time to check into my hotel. I land at noon, and by 1:30, I'm set up and taping something with someone for our 4 o'clock show. But I typically will try to take a lap, or I have to take a lap around the convention center because I have to go get my credential. And somehow on that lap, every single year, I run into Mike Jones.
Wow.
But tomorrow, we're going to meet on purpose here on the radio.
Yes, sir.
Also, pretty good chance we'll air either our conversation with the Mystics' new general manager or new head coach tomorrow. I will talk to both of them at the press conference, and then we'll pick one of those to play here on the radio. We'll have Dave Johnson. It'll be a Wizards game day, last one before the All-Star break. Anything else that we got for tomorrow, Anthony? Competition Wednesday, although I guess we review the Super Bowl and finalize the season, so that's what we got for tomorrow. As for today, we wrap things up with Real Things Real People Said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Some of the best sports sound bites I've ever heard came out of Unrivaled last night, their one-on-one tournament going. And let's just play the short version of the Alicia Gray, Anthony. Alicia Gray won her one-on-one matchup, and Alicia Gray has said, I am here. I'm doing this one-on-one tournament because I want the $250,000 that we get if we win. She's been invited to play in the NBA's celebrity game. She's skipping that if she advances to the finals of Unrivaled because she wants the money. And that's gone kind of viral, and it went even more viral after she said this last night.
Oh, you always trying to get to the bag with money on the line. Like, who don't want no money?
I know that's right.
With Raz Goldamoude on Turner Sports. Anthony, I say the end part of that, the end part of Alicia, who don't want no money, that needs to be on my board when I return to the studio, out of my home studio when it stops snowing, like this week, because as we approach NFL free agency, the phrase, who don't want no money, is going to become very, 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 very needed.
Oh, look, you ain't lying, man. A lot of people got to get paid.
Not the refs, though. Can't have the refs on their bull crap. Rakia Jackson young star from the LA Sparks, won her matchup last night. She's next up going to face Nafisa Collier, and she has a plan to get physical as long as the refs let her.
All right, you've pulled off one upset here. The next one is against the number 1 seed in Nafisa Collier, who many have called a favorite to win this tournament. So how do you keep this upset machine going?
I just got to body her and hope that the refs don't be on that bull crap, but, you know.
Okay.
I love Roz is like, what do I do with that? Roz was on rapid response control last night. All right. Unrivaled, by the way. The one-on-one tournament resumes here in a couple minutes. Tonight, round 2. Excited to go watch that. That's our show for today. See you tomorrow back here at 4 o'clock on the Team 980.